I rise today to address an issue of serious constitutional gravity. I rise today to address the latest in a long line of appalling and insulting remarks made by the Republican Party's presumptive presidential nominee. Last week, Donald Trump attacked the ethnicity of a U.S. District Court Judge, Gonzalo Curiel, who is presiding over a civil fraud lawsuit against Trump's so-called university. Mr. Trump referred to Judge Curiel's heritage in a lengthy tirade about the judge's ruling in the case. He also called Judge Curiel a, quote, hater, close quote, and, quote, a total disgrace, close quote, suggesting that the judge should recuse himself due to his, quote, negative, close quote, rulings. When pressed on the issue, Mr. Trump doubled down. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal published last Thursday, Mr. Trump stated that Judge Curiel had, quote, an absolute conflict, close quote, in presiding over the lawsuit because the judge is, quote, of Mexican heritage, close quote. Mr. Trump went on to explain that the judge's ethnicity presents a, quote, inherent conflict of interest, close quote, because of Mr. Trump's campaign pledge to build a wall on the U.S. border to Mexico. Let me be clear. Mr. Trump's attacks on Judge Curiel have been characterized even by Republican senators and congressmen as racist, inappropriate, and completely unfounded. Judge Curiel is an American. He was born in East Chicago, Indiana, just steps away from the border with my state. His parents had immigrated from Mexico to the United States. He has a distinguished record. After attending law school at Indiana University, Judge Curiel practiced law in Indiana and California. In 1989, he joined the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of California. As a federal prosecutor, Judge Curiel served in the Narcotics Enforcement Division and worked to bring down drug cartels. After prosecuting a major cartel, he received a death threat and was forced to live under guard for months. In 2007, he was appointed by a Republican governor in California to serve as a state judge. President Obama later nominated Judge Curiel to the federal bench. Senate confirmed his nomination by unanimous vote September 22, 2012. Judge Curiel is well respected in the legal community. A former colleague recently said that, quote, his integrity is beyond reproach. And a California attorney who led the screening committee that reviewed Judge Curiel in 2011 said, quote, he was very highly recommended. No one could say a bad thing about him, end of quote. Despite these accomplishments, Donald Trump views Judge Curiel as incapable of serving as an impartial jurist in this case involving Trump University due to the judge's ethnicity. Mr. Trump believes the lawsuit that Judge Curiel is presiding over should have been dismissed long ago. Maybe Mr. Trump should take a closer look at reality. Multiple lawsuits have been filed against Mr. Trump's so-called university, and in one of the two lawsuits that Judge Curiel is presiding over, former students allege that Mr. Trump and Trump University defrauded them by making misrepresentations about the education they would receive. The plaintiffs provided evidence to support their claims, and as a result, Judge Curiel denied a motion from Mr. Trump to grant summary judgment in his favor, which would have avoided a trial. Nothing in this ruling suggests a lack of impartiality. Instead, Judge Curiel's rulings indicate that a factual dispute exists in the case and the plaintiffs deserve their day in court. Unfortunately, reality and the facts don't seem to matter to Mr. Trump. Instead of acknowledging the inappropriateness of his attacks on Judge Curiel's character and heritage, he's doubled down on them. Mr. Trump apparently believes that after he bullies and demeans a group of people, he should never have to face a member of that community in a courtroom. One of Mr. Trump's most reprehensible statements, and there are many, calls for a total and complete ban on Muslim immigrants coming to the United States of America. In an interview that aired on Face the Nation on Sunday, Mr. Trump was asked, quote, if it were a Muslim judge, would you also feel like they wouldn't be able to treat you fairly because of that policy of yours? He responded, quote, it's possible, yes, yeah, that would be possible, absolutely, end of quote. Where does Mr. Trump's twisted logic end? Does his crude attack on a disabled reporter present a conflict of interest for a judge with a disability who presides over a case against him? Do his disparaging remarks about women disqualify female judges from ruling on lawsuits filed against his failed business ventures? Mr. Trump's assertions are not only bigoted, they also endanger the independence of the federal judiciary as he aspires to the highest office in the land. And again, they raise serious questions about his judgment. Despite these concerns, Senate Republicans are keeping 89 federal judicial seats vacant on the executive calendar of this Senate, including an empty seat on the U.S. Supreme Court, in the hopes that Donald Trump will be able to fill those vacancies. After Mr. Trump's racist diatribes, I'd like to ask my colleagues how they can possibly trust Mr. Trump to appoint judges to the federal bench. Are they comfortable with a potential president who apparently believes that the only qualified candidates for federal judgeships are those who possess racial, religious, or other characteristics that he has not yet disparaged? Trusting Donald Trump to fill judgeships in our nation's federal courtrooms is a risky and constitutionally dangerous bet. And placing that trust in Trump would threaten grave harm to our system of justice and to the rule of law. I thought or had hoped that we had moved past the dark time in our nation's history when defendants believed it was appropriate to try to remove judges from a lawsuit on the basis of race. It was just over 40 years ago, an African-American federal judge named Leon Higginbottom presided over a class action lawsuit involving civil rights claims. The defendants in the lawsuit filed motions to disqualify Judge Higginbottom from the case based on his race. In his opinion denying their motions, Judge Higginbottom wrote the following: "It will be a tragic day for the nation and judiciary if a myopic vision of the judge's role should prevail, a vision that required judges to refrain from participating in their churches, in their non-political community affairs, in their universities. So long as Jewish judges preside over matters where Jewish and Gentile litigants disagree, so long as Protestant judges preside over matters where Protestants and Catholic litigants disagree, so long as white judges preside over matters where white and black litigants disagree, I will preside over matters where black and white litigants disagree." In light of Mr. Trump's reprehensible remarks, Judge Higginbottom's words have taken on a renewed resonance. If Mr. Trump's myopic vision for the federal judiciary prevails, it will indeed be a tragic day for the nation.